No.
Oh, so kid, I want someone to take a picture of you. If you see.
Hi guys. Sorry, I was working out some technical difficulties, but I'm ready. Hello, Gabby and Alana. This is so cool. This is my first time ever doing this, so we'll all bear with one another in our virtual world. Super, super dope. So exciting seeing people. I wish I could see people like in person, but seeing you guys in the chat is super cool. And my roommate is here watching me live, so this is fun. Cool. Give it like a minute for people to hop on. Hey, Yolanda. Yolanda says, hi, Rumi.
Oh, tell her I say hello.
Jillian says hello, Yolanda. So just some hop-in etiquette. You guys are all muted, so that's the good news for some, I feel like. You may not want to be heard or seen. And if you want to enlarge the PowerPoint that I'm sharing with you guys, if you just double click that screen share, it'll enlarge it for you. And then we'll be doing a Q&A at the end, so you guys can request to be on the screen and then share, or you guys can put your questions in the chat later. I don't want it to get lost, so definitely share the questions at the end, please. So cool. We will get started. We have 37 people. Awesome. So excited about this. So as you guys have read, my name is Jordana. I'm currently in the Lifeway region of our LA Fellowship of Churches, and I love Lifeway. It's super awesome. Come visit us after COVID is over. I've been a Christian for 12 years, and I am a licensed marriage and family therapist. You guys can see my license number is there. For the past 7 years, in different capacities, I've been working with at-risk youth, mostly on probation and in DCFS, and it's just been a passion of mine for a very long time. As you can see, my shirt says Jesus and therapy, my two biggest passions. And I'm also a soon-to-be published author. I'll be publishing my poetry at the beginning of next month, so I'm super excited about that as well. And it's always been a dream of mine to share at a conference and to speak in merging the worlds of mental health and the Bible, because I think those are super integrated. The more you learn about it, the more you see how Jesus really works in the healing through mental health services. So definitely a passion of mine. And I get to speak to you guys about having a healthy relationship with social media. Thanks, Yolanda, for the congrats. And yeah, social media actually hasn't really been around for very long. It started in the mid-90s, and it's really expanded since then. And one study showed that 7 out of 10 people use social media. So it's definitely a huge part of our worlds. It's built so many connections. I think our world is more connected in some way than it's ever been before, but it's also been at the center of so much drama. And it's really imperative that we really speak about how to have a healthy relationship with it, because if we're not intentional, it can really be a playground for Satan. So give me 1 second. Cool. So what does having a healthy relationship with social media even mean? What does it look like? And it's all about, for me, when I think about the definition, it's all about balance and healthy habits. And we definitely need to learn what it means to have a balanced relationship with social media, and also what does it mean to build healthy habits. As we will look into, we think that we have a lot of control, but we really do not. And so we need to be very intentional about that. And so some of you guys may have thought and came to this thinking that I was going to tell you to delete your social media. That is not what I'm here to do. But really, my goal is to help you all reevaluate and reassess your relationship with social media, and to make positive changes for yourself, for your mental and spiritual health. So it's very individualized. It's not one thing that works for me may not work for you, and vice versa. So we are going to look into things to help you reevaluate and reassess. So what are the benefits of social media? I took a personal inventory and thought to myself, what do I like about social media? And I love the connection. I get to stay connected to my family and my friends. I am now a professional, so I've been able to connect with professional colleagues through social media, stay in touch with academic colleagues that I went to school with, especially being away from my family physically, getting to see what they're doing, getting to see what my friends are doing, connecting with friends from like middle school has been really cool. The laughs, I love Twitter for this reason, all the funny posts. It really does feed our soul. My roommates, I will tell you, I'm always like, guys, you need to watch this video or read this tweet, because especially during COVID, it definitely has been really discouraging. And yes, for the memes, love them. And creative ideas, getting to branch out in so many different mediums. I've learned so many recipes, learned some DIY things, got some inspiration. I get all my sports ideas and information through social media. It's been a really big point of that. And news. We get a lot of news. We get to not have to like go get a newspaper. We can just scroll through our phone and get news. We can get notifications about news. So we know what's going on in the world and in our community. We get sports news. I love Twitter for this reason. It's kind of all encompassing for me, as you guys can tell. Twitter is one of my favorite platforms, but I get a lot of my sports information. I'm a huge Lakers fan. So all the trades and all the big things, I get information very quickly through Twitter. And what are the harms? You know, as there's benefits, there's also harms. And some of those are sinfulness. I think it was Dustin in the chat said it's a playground for Satan, and it really is. There's so much greed, so much jealousy and envy, impurity, divisiveness, deceit. It's really running rampant through social media, and I don't think we always realize how much it is at play. And just super triggering material, especially in the wake of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor and Ahmaud Arbery, just watching videos without our consent of people getting seriously hurt and injured, as well as being murdered, has been really discouraging. And just seeing so much hateful speech towards individuals, just very, very damaging. The cyberbullying can be really triggering for many of us. And yeah, Zane, I know, hardly looking at the news because it can be so negative, and there's really no trigger warning sometimes on social media. So even if we want to avoid it, sometimes we unfortunately can't. And the last harm that I found for myself is it can be an unhealthy distraction. We spend more time on social media than we do with God, with people, handling responsibilities. And sometimes you like may close out Facebook and then you hop right back on, not realizing like, oh dang, like I literally just closed this out. Like, what is wrong with me? So it can definitely be an unhealthy distraction, something very mindless that we can go to when we may need to be doing other things. And when I was thinking about having a healthy relationship with social media and what that looks like, and biblically, a scripture that came to my mind was 1 Corinthians 10:23. And it reads, everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial. Everything is permissible, but not everything is constructive. And this is totally social media. As I said, that there are benefits, getting to connect, to see what's going on, to get cool ideas, to get even encouraging good news, seeing what's going on in people's lives and in our world. But it's also, there are things that aren't constructive, and we need to feed in more to the things that are beneficial and constructive and really weed out what is permissible but not beneficial for us. So moving along, I'm just looking at research. What do researchers say? What have people found about social media? And it's kind of honestly a little more scary than it is positive, but I did want to bring in a little bit of the positive. So at the end, I'll show you some references of where I got this material from. But there was one study that was looking at online social networking and mental health. It was published in 2014, and it looked at depression, self-esteem, and other psychiatric problems. And it saw that people who had depressive symptoms, so already had depression or some low-grade form of depression, spent more time on social media, and that the impact of social media was stronger and more damaging for children and teens than it was for adults. And that there was a reduced intensity of interpersonal communication and an increase in shallow interactions with people, and that it presented a skewed perception of well-being and life satisfaction. And so it also said that using social media to strengthen and maintain social ties with family and close friends had a positive impact on mental health. But as you can see, that there was definitely a higher correlation with people using it for kind of shallow, more relaxed connection and feeling more lonely and isolating. As well as one little fact too, they found that the dependence on social media leads to poor quality of sleep, which is very interesting. It may go along with the fact that people are using social media so much at night in bed and not really going to sleep at a reasonable hour. And then good old Harvard also did a study in 2019, and they looked at emotional versus routine use of social media on our social well-being, our mental health, and our self-rated health, so actually our physical health. And what they found was that an emotional connection with social media, so more of like this, I need deep emotional connection to social media, was correlated with a negative impact to all three of those areas. So negative social well-being, negative mental health, and negative physical health. And that a routine use was associated with positive outcomes in all three of those areas. So if it's more routine, that it can help your mental health, it can help your social well-being, and it can help your physical health. When we think about a routine, there's intentionality behind that, which we'll get into later, but that emotional connection was really poor. And then there actually was a study published this year on the impact of social media on youth mental health. So it looked at youth in the sense, I believe it was like 18 to 29 was kind of their range. And they saw an increase in negative self-comparison due to selective self-presentation. So I'll explain that a little bit. We get to select, we get to choose how we present ourselves. It's not a very all-encompassing presentation of ourselves. So with selective self-presentation of ourselves and with others selecting what they present to us, it creates negative self-comparison. And this increased social comparison has been associated with depression, with eating disorders, and with body image issues. And I know for myself, definitely, I think going back to the sinfulness, the greed and the envy, just seeing people's lives look so great, it can make us compare ourselves and be like, why isn't my life like that? And this has been shown in the research. But another study also saw that there's benefits of humor and entertainment and creative expression and building new connections. So there really is a whole blend on social media, but there's definitely really damaging impacts. And so also I looked at not only research, but the people behind social media too. They will kind of share a little bit, not the people who are currently working for social media because they're benefiting from it financially, but people who have gotten out of that social media world. And some of you guys may have watched on Netflix as we've been home and binge watching a lot of Netflix. There's a great documentary on there called The Social Dilemma. And so I got to watch Netflix as some homework for this, which was kind of nice. But it was also it was a little scary. So I'll go into that. So with The Social Dilemma, it talked about a few different points. And so what I kind of clumped them together. So addiction, polarization, a pseudo control, and falsehoods. So with addiction, they saw that there's a dopamine hit in the reward pathway from likes and notifications. And I know that sounds like super scientific. So I'll explain a little bit about dopamine. It's something in our brain that the more dopamine we have in our brain, the more pleasure we experience, and the more we want to engage in that. So this is most notable in drug addictions. You hit the drug, whatever drug you're using at that time, and it floods you with dopamine and it floods you with pleasure, and your body's like, I like this. And so it creates an addiction to it. And in our reward pathway, the VTA is kind of the reward center of our brain, and that shoots all the way up to our prefrontal cortex, which is where we have our thought processes and our decision making. So it's the last part of our brain to form, and it's probably one of the most important pieces of our brain in terms of our thought processes and how we make decisions. And so they saw that with likes and notifications, it increased dopamine, which created some addictions to social media. And I felt so bad. The guy who created the like button was like, we just wanted to spread positivity. And it really created a monster, to be honest. And the positive intermittent reinforcement, which basically means that you are making rewards unpredictable. So it's like a slot machine. You know a reward is coming, you just don't know when, and you continue to feed into it so that you can finally get that reward. And so that's what the likes and the notifications we post on Instagram, and we're just waiting for those likes. We're waiting for the notifications to let us know that someone enjoys what we've posted. And that creates this unconscious habit and this addiction, for lack of a better word. And one thing that they said was that fake and brittle popularity leaves you more vacant and empty than before you did it. Yeah, you want more. And that really hit me. I was like, oh, snap. It really is fake and brittle. It's not a strong sense of any stability. And another thing that really stood out to me was that executives, so the people, the CEOs, the big people in social media, were addicted even though they knew how the technology worked. So even they can't even hide from it. They can't get away from it. And we all know with the election, there's been huge polarization between far left and far right, and Democrat versus Republican. But this polarization is not only in politics, but in other forms that is created by social media. And this clickbait, so headlines or posts that have very like emotional material, you read it and you get angry or you get excited. That's what clickbait basically is. It's bait to make you click on it, to look at it, even though oftentimes we just go with the headline and we don't click on it. So definitely click and read, because the headlines don't always share the true story. But this clickbait, these statements really intensify the polarization that we feel. And one fact is that fake news spreads 6 times faster than real news on Twitter. Insane. So really with this like clickbait, it's perpetuating all this fake news to kind of be expanded through social media. And then it becomes most of what we see rather than less of what we see. And the pseudo control, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. They brought up a point where they call the only two, which is not necessarily true, but the only two kind of organizations that use the term user for their people are illegal drugs and social media users. And when you really think about it, when you think of like who says users, and it's not really, they use it more in like a small context and not a wider context, but it kind of has some truth to it. The algorithms are basically AI technology, and their main purpose and only purpose is to predict and persuade behavior. There's no human nature behind it. There's no way to put human nature behind it and think, oh, maybe this wouldn't be good for people to do this. It's really just trying to persuade and predict people's behavior. And it happens without us even knowing. And they mentioned that one time Mark Zuckerberg was like, I want more users in Korea today. And they were able to like switch a few little knobs in Facebook to get more users in 24 hours, which is insane. So there's definitely a scientific algorithm that's really playing that we ourselves cannot beat. So we think that we have control, like, oh yeah, I can stop at any time. But in reality, try stopping social media, like cold turkey, never going again, and you'll feel the impact. And the falsehoods, we curate our lives around perfection. We choose what we want people to see. We equate likes with value. The more likes that we have, the more people like us, the better they think that we are, the cooler they think that our lives are. And it's a digital pacifier for loneliness and other emotions. It's easy to go to it to find comfort. And even if there's a lot of negativity on there, we're just kind of that positive intermittent reinforcement. We're just looking and looking and looking for something to fill us and to make us feel good. So yeah, lots of not so great things with that documentary, but I do highly recommend it. It's definitely a good one. And good old Drake. Love my man Drake. happy birthday, Drake. It's his birthday today. But our pop star prophet, as I like to call him, has a great song, Emotionless. And it really hits at this. Some deep words are in his lyrics in here, and you can read some of them. Just this fishing for praise, opinions from strangers take me out of my ways, alone and afraid, happily married till she puts down her phone, just all these things. And what really stood out to me was the line of crying out for help, but her latest caption is leave me alone. I think there's a lot of emotions we feel behind when we post, but we post a lot of positive things that leave us empty in reality because we may not be really experiencing those positive things. And I love the line too. He says, breaking news in my life, I don't run to the blogs. The only ones I want to tell are the ones I can call. And I think just that hits at that real connection that we have with people, and not just all the people, whether we know them or not, that are on social media following us currently. So go listen to the song after you can hear. And so what does this mean for us spiritually? We got all the information. We saw that there's some good things with social media, but definitely some really negative things with social media. So how does this impact us spiritually, and how can we make healthier decisions and engage in healthier ways? So first, we need to acknowledge Satan's role. As we know, this is a spiritual battle that we're living in. Satan definitely wants to get us down and not have us follow God. In Revelations 12:9, it says, the great dragon was hurled down, that ancient serpent called the devil, or Satan, who leads the whole world astray. He was hurled to the earth, and his angels with him. So we know that earth is Satan's battleground. He's roaming around in any pocket that he can to really deceive us and manipulate us. 1 Peter 5:8 says, be alert and of sober mind. Your enemy, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour. And there's a lot of deceptions and manipulation on social media. The like button, it promotes positivity, but it created a monster of addiction to shallow value. The selective self-promotion deceives us from the reality of people's lives and even our own. We post things on social media that make our lives look super, super great. And in reality, we may be really depressed, really lonely, really wanting that connection with people, but we can't get it. Oh, Asia, it was Revelations 12:9. Sorry about that, super fast. Revelations 12:9. And it also manipulates us into seeking a false happiness or unattainable status. A lot of influencers were like, wow, they get to go on all these trips and they get all these products. But in reality, they're getting paid to do that. That's not really their lives. They have so many other forms of their lives that we aren't seeing, whether positive or negative. And we get really deceived and manipulated into thinking that, oh yeah, I can just like hop on a plane at any time and go wherever I want and do that without a job. But they get paid a pretty penny for that. And we think we're controlling it. That's another piece of the way that Satan deceives us. But it's really controlling us to manipulate our behavior for financial gains. That was something that they spoke very much about in the Social Dilemma documentary, about how people make money off of us by the things that we like and the things that we promote without us even knowing it. And so that's definitely a deception behind social media that we're not always aware of. And all of this ends up leaving us feeling more empty, more lonely, and worthless, which are the exact opposite of how God created us and how God sees us. And with this, it leads us into engaging in sin. In Galatians 5:19, it says the acts of the sinful nature are obvious, but sometimes whether we're desensitized or we just don't care, we may not realize that we're unconsciously feeding into sin and engaging in it. So one thing is debauchery. We don't really want to think about our addiction to social media being debaucherous. I bet you a lot of money if you told me right now how much time you spend on social media. I can guarantee it's probably not the correct answer. It's probably more. We just don't always realize that we're seeking comfort in excessive amounts through social media, and it's okay. I know I was like, how much time do I spend? And I was like, oh snap, I'm spending like 3 hours a day. What the heck? And so I had to put some moderators into my social media apps to make sure that I'm not using it as much. And the envy that we experience, the unending ability to compare ourselves to others, breeds deep-seated envy. You may not even realize it, you just scroll past it. But I'm pretty sure every 3 to 5 scrolls, there's a piece of envy that pops up into you as you see, oh man, that person's in a relationship. Oh man, that person's on a trip. Oh man, that person got to get Sun Life. If you went to Pepperdine, you know Sun Life is so great, and it's only really in the west side of LA, and you may get jealous that someone got your favorite food or whatnot. Something so small, but yet it does breed this ugly envy inside of us. And dissensions, discord, and hatred, the polarization leading to senseless arguments on social media and hatred. I know for myself, I've experienced hatred towards my brothers and sisters with just ignorance that they've expressed. And then rather than having a loving conversation with them, I've just harbored bitterness in my heart. And I've had to check myself and get open and confess that because it's so easy to experience that without, it's not that I want to hate my brother or sister, but when I'm inundated with all these things that really trigger emotion in me, it can be really hard to fight it. And idolatry. We have this obsession with influencers and celebrities on social media, and even idolatry to social media itself, putting it above God, going to social media before we go to God, getting comfort through social media without comfort through the scriptures and through prayer. And the consequences of all this is anxiety, depression, narcissism, and irritability, which are all not great things for us to experience. Satan knows our weak points, and social media is a breeding ground for them. And so we need to resist and we need to flee. James 4:7 says, submit yourselves then to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. And again, not that we need to flee from social media and delete it, but we need to engage in it in positive ways. And so how can we do this spiritually? We need to exercise the greatest commandment. We need to build spiritual habits. And implementing spiritual habits in social media can create healthy balance and a healthy experience overall with it. And so as we know, the greatest commandment reads, love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength. And the second is this, love your neighbor as yourself. There's no commandment greater than these. And I think we forget the piece of loving yourself. And that's a piece I really want to talk about too. But first, loving God. If you are a Christian, can people see God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit through your social media? And not that you have to post like, oh, come to this event or whatnot, but does your life truly reflect a life that is imitating Christ? Is what you are about to post pleasing to God? You need to ask yourself that. Is this glorifying God with what I'm going to post? To be honest, I have not done this all the time. And I've looked back at my story and I'm like, that does not glorify God. Let me remove that. But by the time I've done that, a few people have already seen it. But amen, repentance. But share about your relationship with God in the blessings and the struggles. Not just the blessings, not just the good things, but how you're learning about God through your struggles. Promote spiritual content. Doesn't have to just be scriptures. It can be a wealth of other things. Follow godly and motivational content. There's so many different like profiles, Instagram handles that you can follow that have spiritual content. And unfollow what tempts you. If it's not bringing you closer to God, unfollow it. Love others. So reflect on this. Is what I'm about to post uplifting to others or going to cause them harm? I think we can get really selfish of like, this is what I believe and this is what I want to post, but not really acknowledging that what we post does have an impact on other people. And ways that we can love others is asking people for prayer requests through our social media. Avoid senseless arguments. Call someone if you've seen what they posted brought up emotion in you rather than just, going off in their comment section. And send encouraging messages and videos. As I said, there's so many funny things on social media. Send it. Give someone a laugh. Give someone a smile in the day. And loving yourself. Are you uplifting or tearing down yourself by comparisons and attention seeking? Something to reflect on. And also, what is your motive behind posting what you're posting? Is it selfish ambition? Is it trying to seek attention from people? Is it trying to feel this emptiness or loneliness that you're currently feeling? Or is it reflective of Christ? We truly need to find our identity in Christ, not in filling our insecurities with attention, clout, followers, likes, views, retweets, comments. The list goes on and on and on. But there are all ways that we fill ourselves with emptiness rather than with wholeness through Christ. And follow people and content that inspires you. Connect with your passions through social media. Engage in ways that are life-giving. A bunch of posts each day that frustrate you is not life-giving. So maybe you need to take a break from social media that day, or you need to unfollow or mute those profiles that you're following. But that's not loving yourself by giving yourself an attitude every time you get on social media. So we looked at the spiritual impact. So what are the practicals that we can implement for ourselves? We see that the Bible calls us in 1 Timothy 4:16, watch your life and doctrine closely. Persevere in them, because if you do, you will save both yourselves and your hearers. And social media is a huge part of our lives. 7 out of 10 people, as I shared in the beginning, use social media. And we could really use it to save ourselves and save our hearers. And how we can do this to promote our mental and spiritual health, there are definitely practicals that we can do. And so here are the practicals. Connect with others and uplift others in meaningful ways, not just in shallow ways of like, hey, that's so cool, but really like, hey, I haven't talked to you in a while. Like, what's going on? Let's set up a virtual coffee date, or let's social distance at a park together. Truly connecting with people in meaningful ways. And also follow uplifting accounts. That way you can share them with people and encourage people through maybe there's something positive that you saw, and sending them that way. Mute and unfollow. When it comes to sin and temptation, don't just mute and unfollow people that you don't agree with all day. Sometimes you do need to take a break, but don't just write people off because they agree with something that you don't agree with. But unfollow what is not uplifting and what is purely negative. Things that feed your impurity, feed your greed, feed your envy. Unfollow those things, mute those things. And don't sneak diss. This is a term in the hood, when you're saying things but dissing someone else's gang. But we do this with our stories. We post things and we're like, ooh, I hope so-and-so reads this. Don't be doing that. Don't be messy. Don't post it. If you feel some type of way, pray about it, get some advice, and handle it in a righteous way. Matthew 5:29-30 talks about, like, if your right eye causes you to sin, cut it off. So if there are things that cause you to sin, you need to unfollow it and you need to mute it. Reduce your screen time, set healthy boundaries. There are a lot of apps that you can download that will basically prevent you from opening an app when you have set that time limit for yourself. There's also ways to do that internally on the app. I get notifications if I've been on Instagram for an hour in the day. And that's my cue of, all right, John, it's time to slow it down, get off, and take a break. And if you don't do anything that I tell you or advise you to do, please do this one thing. Turn off your notifications. Please do it. Turn them off. Get rid of them. It feeds anxiety. It feeds the passion, the reward pathway in your brain. I went to a self-care training 2 years ago, and that was actually their suggestion because of the AI technology. We don't realize how it's impacting us. And to be honest, I realized that I was so much more peaceful without my notifications on. And a warning that your apps will literally send you notifications internally to turn back on your notifications. And it lasted like almost a year. I think they finally got the hint that I'm not turning off back on my notifications, but just they will harass you to turn on your notifications, but turn them off. And take healthy breaks. It's really important. 2 weeks ago or last week, I took like a 4-day break from social media, and it was just so nice to like clear my head. I had a lot of things to think about and make decisions upon, and it was really just helpful for me to take that time to go to God rather than mindlessly going to social media. And don't be debaucherous afterwards. Don't be like excessively on social media. Like you took a break for one day and then you're like, all right, I'm going to spend the rest of the 24 hours on social media. Don't do that. Fill those healthy breaks with healthy things that can eventually reduce the amount of time that you're spending on social media. And always important to check the source. We get a lot of clickbait, as you said, or as I said, on social media, and we really need to check the source. As I said too, that fake news spreads 6 times faster on Twitter than it does with real news. And so check the source, read the articles, look into what you're seeing, because it may not always be the full truth. It may be deceitful. And there's always the option to delete your social media, but only do that if you feel like the Holy Spirit is calling you to do that. I'm not telling you to delete your social media. And yeah, so here are my references. You guys can take a quick screenshot to get the different articles. I also put my email, so you guys can email me if you want the articles itself. And you can follow me on social media. We can connect. Let me know that you came to this and that you were impacted by something and you want to connect. I do have 2 Instagrams. One is my personal and one is my poetry page. So if you're interested in looking at my poetry, you guys can have free reign on there. All my other social medias are private because I'm a therapist and have to be mindful what I post, but have free reign with my poetry. But thank you guys for allowing me to share. This was really fun. I love that you guys were so active in the chat. It made me feel super encouraged. So yeah, if you guys have questions, you can put it in the chat, or you can request to, I think it says like request to join or something to that nature, and you can show your lovely face and ask your question. You guys are so welcome. Thanks guys for being so awesome. Any poetry or any questions? I was like reading my poetry post. Can't wait to read your poetry. It's coming out November 6th, so you guys can read my book. Doesn't seem like anyone has any questions, but we can hang out. If you guys want to come on, you guys can. Yes, I can go back to the reference page. I will right now. And if you double click that screen share, it'll pop up larger so you can actually read it. Okay, one question. How do you stay accountable to your boundaries? I found that I'll write down different social media boundaries and break them. Self-control is hard. But yeah, any tips on that? Totally real. There are, I think the best thing, like we set these boundaries for ourselves, but we don't think about it. So internally in apps, I know Instagram does this. I'm sure Facebook does this, and Twitter. But there's in the settings, there's a way that it will like pop up for you that like you've been on social media for a certain amount of time, and that can be your cue. But I know for me, sometimes I even like go past that. I'm like, oh, well, whatever. Like I know I've been on it for a long time, but there's other apps. My roommate is here and she uses one. What is the app called that like will prevent you from going on your app?
Oh, it's just the screen time settings on the iPhone.
Okay, so if you have an iPhone, screen time settings, it literally will like lock the app for you. And it'll be like, hey, do you want 10 more minutes? And then it'll like kind of lock it for you. Yes, so screen time app within the iPhone. I'm sure that there's other apps that can do that too. If you look in your app store, but specifically with iPhones, they kind of have it integrated, which, you know, I'm addicted to Apple products. So shout out to Apple for doing that.
In the settings.
In the settings. And also I know like another one of my friends, she's like, I've been on Instagram too long. And so she'll give someone else her password and they'll change the password so that she can't even get on it. So that's another way to set that boundary for yourself. If you live with people, have them ask you, your person who mentors you, have them ask you and hold you accountable. So get people involved. Don't just rely on yourself. We're weak-willed human beings. We all make mistakes. So the more you can have like a team of people and even your phone to help you, it will make things better. How can we be sure that the accounts we follow are actually Christian? Like if they are truly living what they post? That's a good question. I don't think there's really a way to know for sure. But I think if it's the things that they post are encouraging to you and are helping you in your relationship with God, really praying for the Spirit to give you discernment on that. But if it's leading you closer to God and it's aligning with the scriptures that you can read for yourself, then I would say that it probably is good for you. Again, we're all human, so we can't dictate like, oh, that person's a Christian, that person's not. I mean, there's clear things that will say that, but there are gray areas where it could be tricky water to say like, oh, that person's really not a Christian, even though they're saying they are. So I'd say if it's aligning with the Bible, it's encouraging you and you're praying to the Holy Spirit to give you discernment on that, then I would suggest keep following them. If they are not really doing that and you feel a little, weary about it, then I would say unfollow them. My friend is my lovely friend, Jillian, my roommate. She's awesome. I call her my life partner because we travel together. We've lived together for 4 years. She's awesome. She's the homie.
Go Jordana! I didn't want to interrupt, but now I can. She's the best.
If you can hear her in the background, she's my hype woman today. Can you go back to the benefit slide? Absolutely. Just scroll through all the posts. There you go. And if you double click, you can see it big and bold. Thank you, Teresa. Thank you everyone for coming. This is really encouraging. If you guys have more questions, please send them. I love answering your questions. Oh, I totally missed Maya. Sorry about that. So what do you think is a good amount of time to be on social media? I think that's really different for everyone. As I said, it's kind of an individualized thing. What's good for me may not be good for you. So I would suggest really praying to God first to give you discernment on that, and to ask people around you what they think, like just get like feedback from people. Think about how much time you're spending with God, and if you're spending more time with social media than you are with God, that's something to look at too. But yeah, I think it's different for everyone. Social media impacts people in different ways as well. So some people may be able to go on it longer than others and not feel as impacted. But I would say just whatever's going to help you set healthy boundaries for yourself is the best time. Probably should scroll through the chat and just make sure I got everyone's questions. Doesn't look like there were any other ones that I missed. Cool. All right, and then a new question. Sophia, you are so welcome. Cool. Social media has on women in Generation Z. So cool. Definitely watch the Social Dilemma documentary, give you some feedback on that. And Sebastian, what about for people that are disciples and want to be social media influencers? I don't think that's a bad idea. I follow a few people. Actually, my shirt, Jesus in Therapy, are actually some influencers. They're theologians, parents, spouses, poets, proud Black people, and they use their platform very positively to help people grow closer to God, but they also show in a real way. Like they show their lives, they make jokes about life and whatnot. They're not like, this is like all about God. So I think it's cool to see just their life and how Jesus integrated through it. So I think whatever you're passionate about, as long as you are praying, I think prayer and getting discernment from the Holy Spirit are like the biggest things you can do as a disciple in general. But I think if you are a disciple wanting to be a social media influencer, ask yourself why you want to do that, because it can really be, we can do it for selfish ambition a lot of times, and you can get wrapped up in it. If you get really big and get a lot of clout, there can be people asking to promote things that aren't righteous. So I would first ask yourself like why you want to do it, that, and to like how you can glorify God in it. So I don't think it's wrong, but I think you have to go about it in a way that's going to allow God to be more than you. And also, and that's not just like making it about God, but just really for yourself, like in your heart, it's more for God than it is for yourself. How tough was it for you to give up social media, and how were you able to occupy your free time? So yeah, I haven't completely given it up. I did take a break. I think for me, I actually, this year was like the first time I ever like took really like a break from social media at different points. It kind of became, to be honest and to be real, it kind of became like a mental health thing for me. Like it just was, I realized that I wasn't really in touch with my emotions about how I was feeling about certain things. And there was one time I was just like scrolling through my phone. I knew I needed to pray, I knew I needed to journal, but I was just like, it was almost like this addiction. And I just sat down my phone and I instantly started crying. So for me, it's really like this visceral reaction of emotion where like I can feel my lack of closeness to God, and I know that I need to like take a break. So that's for me. I tried to like meditate, and like that's how I filled my time. I've like done some meditation. I've hung out with my roommates. I've watched Netflix. I'll read. I'm a huge Mariah Carey fan, so her book came out recently, so I spent a lot of time reading that instead of being on social media. So yeah, doing things that I enjoy, coloring, like in those adult coloring books. Yeah, just like calling people, texting people. It's super tough, but I think the more you can like do that for yourself and take that time away, it's really helpful. With the volume of information on social media, personally, it's hard for me to know what needs more research on my end. Any tips? I think just like if you see something, one tip that they gave in the documentary was like if it sparks a lot of emotion in you, that's a clue for you to look more into it. So I'd say if it sparks like a lot of anger, or it like truly, and even if it like truly reflects what you agree with, I would encourage just to look deeper into it to see like what their motive is behind it, what other things are saying similar things. I think there can be like just so many things that like feed us and make us feel good. We often follow things that we believe with and like we agree with, but then all of a sudden our whole social media is nothing that we disagree with. And that's also a clue of like, maybe I'm not like balancing out my social media. So I would suggest just always doing as much research as you can. I know there's a lot of stuff on social media. So if it's something you're passionate about or something you're like super against, I would say those are like clues to look more into it. Ooh, Childhood 2.0 on YouTube. Okay, Sophia, thanks for the recommendation. Definitely going to do that. Jason, because you are someone whose career and job are connected to social media inherently, how would you suggest balancing personal use and professional work? Where is that line? Good question. I really only use, so as like my personal page, all of that is really private. I want to really like make that space sacred for myself. So with my clients or former clients, I worked with teens. So that's a really tricky ground when you're working with at-risk youth. So I've had to make a lot of that private. But with like my poetry page, I use professionally. I don't like to think of myself as like a professional author, but I guess I am. And I really just stick to the poetry. I keep it about that. I did a piece on like how I felt about racism and how I feel about mental health, but it's all like just strictly my poetry. I try to not like bring in other pieces to it. I have poems about like being a woman and loving God, but I just keep it the poems. So that's kind of what I do for myself in terms of balancing it. I know that if I'm doing it for my poetry, because it's so like focused, it doesn't like consume me personally. But my personal use, I generally try to be a little mindful of that. But usually when I cut out social media, I like, if I'm taking a break from it, I cut out from like professional and personal. So that's just what I do. Love you, Sarah. Sarah Callahan.
Oh.
I'm glad you needed this, Maya. We all definitely need it. Thank you guys for coming and listening to me speak for a whole hour. Appreciate you guys. You guys are the real MVPs. Is it possible to send out your slides on Slack? I think that I can. I have them saved as a PDF, so I for sure can. I'll actually go back to the last slide. It has my email. This is my personal email. So if you guys want the slides or any other information, I can give you that. Just let me know that you came to this. So I'm not like, who is asking me for this? But just introduce yourself and let me know that you came to this talk. And I can definitely email you guys my slides or the articles. I have them saved as well. So if you guys want to read them, I have them as well. And then, you know, Netflix, I can't let you borrow my account if you don't have one, but you can ask a friend to borrow their account if you want to watch the Social Dilemma documentary. Cool, cool. I'm definitely here for a little bit if you guys want to ask any more questions.
I have screenshots.
Is leaving. She has no questions. It's okay.
You answered all of it.
You guys are so cool. You guys can like request to hop on so I can see your guys' face if you want. We can have up to 9 screens. So I'm currently hogging 2 of them, but if you guys want to just like show your face, you guys totally can. But no pressure. And no pressure to delete your social media either. If it brings you joy, keep it. Just be wise about it. And Dallas, is so good to see that you're on here. Love your fam. I know we're winding down to, I think you guys have a break from 3 to 4. So, well, Pacific time, I'm not sure if there's other people from other areas, but definitely enjoy the rest of the conference. I hope it goes great for you guys. Hit me up on social media or hit me up in my email if you guys want to chat a little bit more about it. Christina, is texting considered social media? I wouldn't necessarily consider that social media. Actually, in the Social Dilemma documentary, one of them mentioned like emails and said like that's the app he's most addicted to. You're welcome, Spencer. And so, yeah, I don't think texting is considered social media. I definitely think that we can like feed into texting a lot. So probably if you feel like you're doing that a lot, definitely set boundaries for yourself. But I personally wouldn't. I don't know if anybody else would feel it is, but that's just my personal opinion. The 25 of you who are still on here, you guys are awesome. You guys definitely don't have to stay. You guys are great, though. I love you guys all. Spencer, I am so glad that this helped you. I know we can all fall on the extremes to different degrees. So I'm glad that this gave you some insight. So definitely pray on that. And I hope and pray that you can have a more balanced use of social media. Love you guys. I'm going to stop sharing my PowerPoint, but if you guys want it, eventually you guys can email me about it. Spencer, oh, that's so nice. You guys can definitely pray for my book that's coming out. I'm planning all the release promotion stuff right now. So like planning this and planning that has been very like stressful. So if you guys could pray, please, that that will go well. It will be released November 6th and all the information is on my poetry page. So yes. And my author name is J. Marie. I should have prefaced that, but J. Marie, not my actual name. Just, create some anonymity since I do work in mental health. I didn't want, it has nothing really to do with what I do professionally. So I wanted it to be very separate. But thank you, Spencer, for asking. That was super nice and sweet. All right, y'all, you have like 4 more minutes till your break. So you can continue to ask questions or you're free to go. And Greg texted me. Thanks, Greg. Just now saw this. You're welcome, Jason. Thanks for hanging out in the chat and in this lesson. Oh, I totally have like requests in my queue. How do I do this? All right, y'all, I'm going to log off. Love you guys. Thanks so much for being awesome.